Exactly. The dilemma Christian Zionists face is how they view the Jewish people. There is, as you observe, they flip between a love of the Jews and a hate of the Jews, or a form of anti-Semitism.
Well, I was going to use exactly that phrase. I mean, the notion of convert or be destroyed was the message of the Spanish Inquisition to the Jews in 1492, and many who stayed in Spain were destroyed. So could it not be said that certainly the strands you've identified in Christian Zionism, they actually are classical anti-Semitism in disguise?
You could say that. I think if I was sitting in the shoes of a Christian Zionist, bear in mind that most of their advocates have never left America. They depend entirely on the TV screens for their world news and their perception of the Middle East. And therefore they are very removed from the actual human suffering that takes place on a daily basis in Gaza or the West Bank. And therefore it's almost like a virtual video game rather than in touch with the real human suffering of the people on the ground.
That's the America I know, Stephen. The obvious question arising from what you've just said is, why did Jewish political Zionism make this alliance with Christian Zionism and other Christian fundamentalism? The short answer, it seems to me, is that Zionism has always been ready, willing and able to use or be used by any power that would serve its interest. Now, on its own, in America especially, the Zionist lobby is very powerful, but it's even more powerful when it's in association with the Christian Zionist lobby. What's your assessment of the political significance of the lobbies separately, but also those two lobbies together?
The professional lobbyists and those with money are clearly the Zionists, the AIPAC, for example. That clearly is the most influential aspect. But around that are the Christian Zionists who have the troops, if you like, the pawns. So John Hagee said recently, 5 million Jewish Americans in partnership with 50 million American Christians. It's a match made in heaven. The 50 million are the ones who influence the politicians at the ballot box.
But how would you describe the consequences of this lobbying on American policy for the Israel-Palestine conflict?
It's deeply, deeply detrimental for peace and justice in the Middle East, because America is following Israel's foreign policy. It's doing Israel's dirty work. You won't find a single serving US politician critical of Israel in public, because it's political suicide. That shows you the size and the influence of this movement.
In my understanding, the essence of the core message of what I've called the mainstream Christian religion is love and justice. Could it not be said that in their unqualified support for greater Israel, right or wrong, Christian Zionists and other Christian fundamentalists are representing the opposite, hate or at least bigotry and injustice?
Yes, theologians have described Christian Zionism as a heresy because it clearly departs from the teachings of Jesus and the apostles. Jesus called his followers to be peacemakers, not widowmakers. He called them to a ministry of reconciliation, not confrontation. So I regularly speak to Muslim audiences and explain that if people claim to be Christians and are walking in the opposite direction to the teaching of Jesus, they have no right to that name.
What do their positions vis-à-vis Israel tell us about Christian Zionists and other fundamentalists? Are they merely in error in their interpretation of the Bible, or are they actually deluded to the point of clinical madness?
Probably both. I think that the majority of Christian Zionists I meet are simply naive. They've never read the Bible, they believe what their leaders tell them, and they buy what Fox News and NBC and everyone else tells them on the news. But they are firmly convinced that God is blessing them and their country materially because they are caring for the Jewish people. It goes way, way back.
But we've already said they're not really caring for the Jewish people.
No. No, but it goes way, way back to a promise God made to Abraham. I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. They take that as meaning today, if we look after the Jewish people, give them whatever they want, God will look after us. So it's actually a very materialistic theology.
And annihilate the Jews later if they don't convert.
Well, they're in God's hands.
Stephen, if he was among us today, what do you think Jesus would say to the Christian fundamentalists and the Christian Zionists?
He's already told us, because he had problems with a similar group in the first century, the Zealots, who thought that they could bring about God's will on earth by force. One of their advocates today, Gershon Solomon, said the Messiah will not come by himself, we should bring him by fighting. And they believed that. Jesus rebuked...
That's madness.
It's madness, but it's also a very materialistic, earthbound theology. And it's one that Jesus repudiated. At his trial before Pilate, Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it was, my followers would come to my defense. My kingdom is from another place. The kingdom of God is in our hearts, and it is heavenly. And as we follow Jesus and as we seek to live out our faith in terms of love and forgiveness, reconciliation, and working for justice for the poor and marginalized, we are bringing heaven on earth.
And what about God himself? Now, if the terrible wrong that was being done to the Palestinians and is still being done to the Palestinians by Jewish political Zionism is in accordance with God's will, which is what Christian Zionists and other Christian fundamentalists say, would it be reasonable for fair-minded, rational human beings to conclude that God himself is without love and justice and is something of a monster?
That would be a logical deduction if their theology was correct. I go back to their own scriptural teachings in the Old Testament and try and show that God has made it very plain. For example, in Micah, what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God? That's our mandate, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. The message of the Old Testament prophets was very clear. The message of Moses was very clear. Obey God and you can stay on my land. The land belongs to God. This earth is his, it's not ours. Obey and you can stay. Rebel and treat people badly and you are out. You'll be kicked out of the land. So I turn their theology on its head and say, if you're going to take the Bible seriously, I fear another exile from the land unless Israel learns to share the land with the Palestinians, unless they treat them as equals and learn to live together in harmony.
Because the first exile, as the really ultra-Orthodox religious Jews and Torah Carta say, is they say, yes, God gave us the land, but